We are talking Kansas City Chiefs running backs today. This running back room is loaded with talent. Will they draft a running back? Will Isaiah Pacheco look to be a high-end running back too in fantasy football 2023? He could be better than that. Or does McKinnon get in the way, who was literally a top 4 running back in fantasy football for a 6-game stretch in 2022? But will he even be used? He's 31 years old. We don't know. And Clyde Edwards-Helaire entering his 4th year. And the rumor is the Chiefs will not pick up his 5th-year option walking into the next year. So this is when you trade an RB that you aren't going to pick up that 5th-year option on a first-round pick. You trade him before year 4, which is going to be their last year if you're not picking up that option. Where's he go? Does he get paired back up with Joseph Cigar Smoking Burrow as a Bengal? We're talking about all this and more. The Fantasy Football Show begins right now.
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.
Take a lap.
Let's kick it off with Pacheco. This guy is an absolute monster. The way he runs, he's aggressive. He's a hard-nosed runner, a lot of heart, a lot of grit, ability to catch the football, ability to run the football. He's got it all. He's got all the tools that make him a potential high-end running back too. Let's temper expectations and not start coining him a running back 1, but like high-end running back 2. If the Chiefs and Mahomes and Andy Reid use this guy like we think they're capable of using him, the problem is history tells us that Andy Reid, who used to be all about building up an elite running back, has kind of evolved into running everything through Mahomes. And so we have a new track record. If we throw Andy Reid's old running back regime and constant churning out of elite running backs, Kareem Hunt, Jamal Charles, we got a whole long list of RBs that were absolutely electric and monstrous under Andy Reid. But lately, we don't see it. Clyde was a first-round pick, and they still failed to fully utilize him. And he started off 2022 on fire. Clyde started off 2022 on a tear. Look, he had 2 touchdowns receiving in week number 1. He had no touchdowns in week number 2, but as you can see, he had 1 touchdown in week number 3. He had 2 touchdowns again in week number 4. So Clyde was on a tear. He even scored a couple weeks later, but then he fell off. He dropped off. He was utilized a ton too. 32 receiving yards, 44, 39. He had a 42-yard rushing game in week 1. He had 74 yards on 8 carries in week 2. He had 92 rushing yards in week number 4. He was on a tear. Then what happened? Andy Reid, he changed course. He started leaning on Jerick McKinnon. What did McKinnon do? This guy McKinnon went on an absolute stretch. McKinnon went on to have a touchdown from weeks 13 through 18 in every single game from weeks 13 through 18. He had 1, 2, if you include this rushing touchdown, 1, 2, 1, 3 multiple touchdown games. Over 100 yards total in week number 15, 112 yards receiving week number 13. Guy was an absolute monster. Then Isaiah Pacheco enters the picture, has 4 touchdowns in the final 6 games during the regular season. Then drops this amazing Super Bowl effort where he showed grit and toughness, 76 yards on 15 carries, rushing touchdown. It's important to note that Pacheco didn't do much in the receiving department pretty much all year. In the championship game, though, against the Bengals, he did 5 receptions on 6 targets for 59 yards. So a very good outing there, but not a lot of usage in the receiving role pretty much all year long, even when he went on his run the final 6 games of the season. What do we expect? Do we expect more of the same of Andy Reid to make us real excited about a running back in the postseason? Think Damian Williams 2 years in a row. Your memory might be foggy, but Damian looked like fire coming out of 2 playoff runs, and we thought week 1 we're going to see Damian Williams unleash. We didn't. Damian Williams disappointed majorly, and he was easily set up as much as Pacheco coming out of that playoff run. He looked phenomenal in the playoffs. People might forget it, but Andy Reid disappointed us. And if we think Pacheco's locked onto the running back 1 role in Kansas City, I'm not saying he isn't, but if we think it's an absolute lock, we must remember that 3 running backs looked amazing. I just went over it in 2022 alone. We have no guarantee with Pacheco. All we have is a whole lot of upside. He's almost Moon Man material. I'll tell you that right now. I look at Pacheco and I think to myself, this is a potential Moon Man, a guy that can rock with the Moon Men who currently are this list right here.
The Moon Men, dropping loads in outer space.
I could easily see Pacheco down here in one of these spots that's open for a Moon Man.
Space Monsters.
However, I think until we get more of an indication that Kansas City's not going to go after a big name rookie running back, or at least a medium name rookie running back, until we see Clyde Edwards-Helaire traded off this team, we may not have like a real high confidence level that Pacheco is going to be for sure the guy. Now, McKinnon is 31 years old. That's an old RB in today's NFL world. 27 is the new 30, 28 is the new 31. So if this guy's 31, he's really 85 years old. And while he receives a little more than he runs, and that could equate to maybe another year or so of him being active, he's had a lot of history trying to stay healthy. He's bounced around from Minnesota to San Francisco, couldn't stay healthy in San Francisco, comes over to KC, and it's like, at 31 years old, do we really believe he's going to stay healthy and conquer the situation that consumed him, like Clyde at the beginning of the year? Clyde did well, got consumed by the rotation. McKinnon looked great, got consumed by the rotation. Emerged Pacheco. I don't know that he's just going to run in and take it back and roll with it, but would I take him in the double-digit rounds in a fantasy draft or best ball draft? Promo code Smitty on Underdog Fantasy, where I see you can get a $100 match, dollar for dollar on your first deposit. Go play best ball. It's fantastic. But I've seen McKinnon go like in round 14, round 15, round 13. And honestly, when you get to that point and you're like, I need an RB, it's not a bad look. But that is a far cry, a 14, 13, 15 round pick from what we thought we might see walking into 2023 early mock drafting, when we were sitting there in the thick of his big explosion, when he was dropping massive loads all over the field in weeks 13 through 18, when he had 1 receiving touchdown, 2 receiving touchdowns, 2 total touchdowns in week number 15, then a touchdown, then 2 touchdowns, then 1 touchdown. He's scoring touchdowns like they're nothing. When we were in the middle of this week 13 through 18 run, we thought this guy's going to be a second round pick in redraft 2023. I mean, it crossed our minds. We did kick around the idea he's 31. Wait a minute. We did kick around the idea that, hey, Clyde was the guy early on. Now it's McKinnon. What if it becomes Pacheco? And it did. I don't know how I feel about McKinnon other than to tell you, take a flyer on him in double-digit rounds in the 12, 11, 15 range. And if you need an RB, it's a good little swing. As for Pacheco's ADP, we've seen him go. Here's 2 different best ball drafts on Underdog. He went at the 5-6 turn. Okay, in that draft, and he went at the, oh my God, look at this one. He went at the top of round 7 in this draft. These are 2 drafts that I drafted that are far apart. They're not back-to-back on different shows. So a range of bottom of 5, top of 7. That's fantastic value. For a guy that could be a top 10 to 15 running back, a guy that could be a high-end running back too, that's not a very high cost of entry. The risk might be baked in. If he climbs into like round 4, I'm probably out, given the likelihood of some sort of change and switch over to another RB. But I like his upside enough, Pacheco, in round 7. Easy. Round 6, I'm liking it. Round 5, even end of 5, start to get a little bit more concerned, because in round 5, we're talking about players like Jahmyr Gibbs. We're talking about Damian Pierce, George Pickens, Mike Evans, Kyle Pitts, who I love more in round 6 to 7. But my point being, a lot safer players to grab than Pacheco. But if Pacheco's being grabbed in round 6.5 to 7, you're talking about Aaron Jones, Keenan Allen, Tyler Lockett, Gabe Davis, Tyler Algier, who I do like, J.K. Dobbins, Deshaun Watson, Charbonnet, who I do love more than Pacheco. I'm telling you that right now. Just make sure you draft Charbonnet in round 7. Don't draft him too early and get in your own way and ruin ADP and ruin your upside of getting Charbonnet as your 7th drafted player. But all those other names I listed, aside from Charbonnet, I mean, Lockett, Keenan Allen, Treylon Burks, Dak Prescott, Deshaun Watson, J.K. Dobbins, give me Pacheco all day. So important. His risk level with the high-end running back 2 upside he does have, it's all very tied to where you're taking him. As for Clyde, I don't know where Clyde's going to go. In fantasy drafts I do, it's like round 15 to not drafted. You could literally draft Clyde as your last pick right now in an Underdog Fantasy. Promo code Smitty, link in description. You can literally draft Clyde as your last pick. Such an advantage in drafting early on underdog because you're able to get these rookies. You're able to get situations like Clyde's or Pacheco's before Pacheco climbs into round 4 and 5 at round 7. You're able to get all this before things change. You're taking advantage of people that don't really verse themselves in fantasy football year round. You're ahead of the curve. If you're watching right now on this channel, you're ahead of the curve. Clyde could get traded. He's entering his 4th year. First round rookies have a 5th year option for teams that they can pick up. And we're being told right now by The Athletic that the Chiefs are not expected to pick up Clyde Edwards-Helaire's 5th year option, which means that he will likely be looked at as a potential trade piece for 2023, heading into 2023, because think about it, if you're not going to pick him up on his 5th year option, you're losing him after this 2023 season plays. And if you're not really factoring him into the offense, and they clearly didn't, he faded. I know he got hurt, but they just didn't want to involve him late in the year. And so Clyde has an opportunity to get you draft capital, and maybe it's a real low amount, but you could get something back. And guess who would love to play football with this guy right here? This man, Joseph Cigar Smoking Burrow. And I know it's easy to say, oh, Clyde failed. He's a joke. He's never going to be a good running back. Smitty, he's slow. He's not good. Like, I know. You don't need to tell me all the negatives about Clyde. And I'm not trying to sit here and say Clyde is for sure bouncing back. Guys, go ahead and make sure you grab this guy because it's going to be... I'm saying there's a shot here. If Clyde's value an NFL career is going to get revived, I do think it's going to be in a place like Cincinnati where he played college football with Joe Burrow. They brought in Jamar Chase. Clearly, they're worried about what Joe Burrow wants. They want to provide Joe Burrow the tools he wants. And with Mixon dropping off, the mileage increasing on this guy every single year, and he just looks like he dropped off big time. Joe Burrow loves CEH. And I don't care if anybody agrees with what Joe Burrow said. That's not the point here. The point is how much he loves him. Joe Burrow said that Clyde was the best player in college football the year that Clyde came out of college. Joe Burrow has played with some of the best players in the National Football League. Joe Burrow played with both Bosa brothers, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, obviously Jamar Chase, the receivers. We don't have to go into detail about how many players this guy's played with. He's played with the best of the best. And I'm not saying his evaluation is really correct or that he doesn't have some kind of best friend loyalty to say this, but he said that Clyde Edwards-Helaire was better than all of them in college. In college, understand what I'm saying. And my point is that he wants Clyde. I can tell you right now, if Clyde is available for trade for some garbage low-end pick, and the Athletics reporting that Mixon could even get cut. Now, speculation, but point is there might be a job opening and a reason to go get an RB, and Joe Burrow might be the one to say, get her done. He's going to be saying... No one calls anybody anymore. He's texting, hey, get Clyde on a bus right now over here. No, in fact, a first-class flight. Joe Burrow and the Bengals could revive Clyde's career, and they know how to play together. Take a flyer on Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the final rounds of your underdog draft. Promo code Smitty, get that match of up to $100, dollar for dollar. Link in the description. Draft early, but take a share or two of Clyde in that final round territory. Like I'm talking like pick 18 or 19 or 20 round range. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about anything near round 10, 11, 12. I'm talking about in round 17, 16, 20. Take Clyde. Just throw him on your best ball roster, because if he gets traded to Cincy, he could be revived. And if he doesn't, big deal. He's probably landing somewhere. I know a lot of people don't believe in Clyde. I do. I still think Clyde's got a lot of talent. Do I think it's going to evolve? I don't know. The odds are kind of against it at this point, entering his 4th year, to be honest with you. But I'm rooting for him, and I'm rooting for this match. I appreciate you watching the Fantasy Football Show. Subscribe if you're new. Get on over to thefantasyfootballshow.com for your year-round rankings, bold predictions, text advice. I've got a one-on-one text advice feature. I drop my famous bold predictions on this site every year, and I've got a trade calculator. The reason I got into the fantasy industry and developed what I believe to be the first trade calculator in the fantasy football space in 2003, instant-based trade calculator, is because I sat there as a consumer like you, wanting content year-round. There weren't year-round rankings that were completely year-round. Like in February, March, April, didn't matter. Redraft rankings that were year-round. I wanted it, so I created it. I wanted a trade calculator during the offseason. I wanted to run a trade in March, April, May, Any time of the year through a trade calculator, dynasty and redraft. There wasn't one. I created it. I got into the fantasy space because I was once you, consuming content and not getting what I wanted. I'm here to solve problems. That's why I'm in the business. I've been in the business over 20 years and I work for you. Now get out of here. I mean, since I work for you, can I be dismissed?
This is the Fantasy Football Show with your host, Smitty.